Hey guys, it's Robert with the another video on cutting wood. So, as I mentioned in my stacking video, these are the cutting racks that I cut our firewood on, our small firewood. So they're just made out of rough poplar cut off the sawmill. They're true 2x3 material. I think they're 18 inches in the center and they're about 19 on center apart. They'll hold wood that's varied in length up from it'll hold as little as 30 inches, or 40 inches, to as much as 100 inches, 80 to 100 inches. You just have a lot more sticking out each end. And we found this is probably one of the better ways to bulk cut the small stuff. So you can see the pile behind me. This is all of our small stuff that's cut in the spring before we can get down to the swamp, as I mentioned in the other video. So we'll start stacking this rack up. I'll just set the camera up to high speed for that and show you how it's done. Basically, I put my wood about 16 inches from the end of the rack, approximately. It doesn't have to be exact. What has to matter is that one end is completely even. That way you're not ending up with some pieces longer or shorter than others. And then at the far end, if you have any mixed wood, then you end up, that's where you get all these small stuff that's kind of kicking around the ground. It is a bit of a trip hazard. I do have to get it cleaned up, but I usually wait until I get a fair amount of it on the ground before I start really picking it up. And then I just crate it up for this is the first stuff that's burnt after the slabs. So, tool of choice is a logger's pulp hook. I just got to grab mine from the side of the pile there, and here we go. So you can see what I meant about everything kind of being even. Since none of these have to be split, it's not critical that they're all exactly 20 inches. The stove will go up to almost 24 in length. So if something's 21 inches or something like that, or even if it's shorter at 18 inches, it does not matter. It's just try to keep them as even as possible. Alright guys, so as you can see, doesn't take long at all to fill this rack up. You see I got some pieces sticking out the end here like this. There's two reasons I would do that. One is if I have something cut from the end of a tree that's longer than 80 inches, because you'll end up with a tree that's like 120 inches and you don't want to cut a 40-inch piece and an 80-inch piece, so you just cut it at 120. So that's usually what this is. Other times, like this birch down here at the bottom, if your wood's not all perfectly straight, you might end up with voids, like big areas that are not filled in. And if you put the piece in normally, you either end up with a really big void or your piece gets really cockeyed and twisted in the cutting rack. It throws the whole rack off. So sometimes I'll put one out about 20 inches back and that'll fix that. So I'm going to fill the other cutting rack, and when I come back we'll be cutting the loads. Alright guys, so we got both the cutting racks filled up. Just touched up the chain on the chainsaw and got the fuel in it. I'll be running my Stihl MS 261 today. At this point in the video, in the year, I've run about 7.5, 8 liters of fuel through it. It's been a workhorse. I've quite enjoyed it. So the only downside with these cutting racks is they were modeled when I was still running the Husqvarna 55, with the 18-inch bar. So the 18-inch bar just barely gets across these racks. So with the 16-inch bar, I'm not going to get quite across the rack, so I'll come around to the other side and nip off the remainder. So here we go. Alright guys, so you see that went pretty quickly. Again, from an efficiency standpoint, very good. Probably to block this much wood individually would be about 2/3, 3/4 of a tank minimum. We are at barely 1/4 of a tank. So you're really gaining your efficiency on your bought materials, which is your fuel. Because labor is free, labor's cheap when you're doing your own firewood. As you can see, for this kind of work, I just have my hearing protection. I do have steel toe boots on, because you will have blocks falling down, as you've seen, and that's something you don't want to hit in your feet. So, hope you liked the video, guys. Consider commenting, subscribing. Let me know what you think. Thanks, bye.